Hey guys, it's the OC with BossCowboySports, where your voice matters. In today's video, I want to talk about Jerry Jones and recent comments he's made after not being interviewed by the media for a few months. Let's go. All right, guys, listen. Before I get into the content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe Boss Cowboy Sports. Turn on all bell notification icons for the latest and greatest in cowboy sports and news. So, Jerry Jones has an interview, and he discusses and he says, and I'll use his quote before I read his full quote, that there were no surprises. He said that they chose to reallocate the funds of paying Amari Cooper, and that based upon the statistical data that Amari Cooper was not performing like a top flight receiver, and I paraphrase, and that those funds will be better used elsewhere, and that basically he alludes to the fact in the interview that, hey, Amari Cooper has to hold his weight, and we'll replace Amari Cooper with several top players. I want to know what you guys think about this, because I think that is complete nonsense. The Cowboys did not like the cap ramification of a $16 million cap hit. Thus, they cut Amari Cooper to replace him at this point with who exactly? Who exactly? Well, we franchise tagged Dalton Schultz, $11 million. We re-signed. All right, we re-signed the injured Michael Gallup. We re-signed Noah Brown. We brought in a free agent wide receiver, a second or third free agent wide receiver from Pittsburgh. Okay, so today, unfortunately, Mr. Jones has not been proven right. He has not been proven right, because offensively, if you look at the talent of this team, and I'll get to the defense in a minute, you got to stay to the end before I get into that. But offensively, we have not got better. Offensively, right now, we've gotten worse. And so what I would contend is this: there has been conversations and some rumblings in the local media about Chris Olave, the wide receiver, and excuse me if I mispronounce his name, who is coming out of Ohio State, and him running 4.2 and being a blazing fast guy. And guess what? Here's the deal. A lot of guys are running 4.3s, 4.2s these days. And it's no shade or hate on Chris, but I'm saying you got to have the experience and you got to have the expertise and the skill set to come to the next level and get open in a hurry. And so right now, I have my questions. I feel like some of this is saving face, letting things settle, letting the dust settle, so to speak, as it relates to some of the decisions that have really outraged the Cowboy community in the sense of, what in the world is our front office thinking? What in the world is our front office doing exactly? And so Mr. Jones has that comment to reply. And right now, unless we hit in the draft, and mark my words, it's going to be some concerns from that receiver position, or unless we do something else in free agency, it's going to be a little bit of concern. And Mr. Jones alludes to, hey, you know, first couple of games, you know, we may have a little bit of a slow development with Michael Gallup, but we expect that, hey, you know, he'll be good to go. And I'll say this again. Michael Gallup had his ACL surgery, I believe, in February. The minimum recovery for an ACL is 6 months, but most physicians would say 6 to 12 months. It's a range based upon how the bodies of the person responds. Now, me personally, I've had a knee injury. I've had an MCL, not an MCL, a meniscus tear, lateral and medial, on both sides of the knee. It took me a solid 3 months to recover, and that's a soft tissue injury, just because of the nuances and the weight that you put on that knee. And if you think about the wide receiver position, the explosive movements, not just running straight ahead, because a lot of people in the NFL are super fast. So it's not just running straight ahead, it's the stopping, the cutting, the turning, the twisting that can put pressure on the knee and cause it to be unstable if that ligament is not healed and the muscles around that knee joint is not all the way where it needs to be. Think about Odell Beckham Jr. tearing his ACL in the Super Bowl. Odell Beckham Jr. on the play, he tore his ACL. Unfortunately, he was not even being hit. It was a non-contact injury. It was how he planted his foot in the ground, and it did not go well with that ACL, who he had previously injured. And guess what? The ligament tore. So you don't want to rush anybody back from an ACL injury, and you don't want to have false belief and a false expectation of top-level productivity from somebody coming back from an ACL injury. It was torn. It was surgery, I believe, was done a beginning part of February, I believe. So let's just give February, March, April, May, June, July, August. That's 6 months. So you're telling me right in the middle of camp, coming back, and you're going to be ready to go near the end of camp and the regular season is starting? I don't know. I think that Amari Cooper, you'll start to see shades of his old self as we get close to the back end of this coming season in 2022. I would not rightfully expect that he is going to come back and be a contributor. Furthermore, Michael Gallup was the number 3 receiver on this football team, not the number 2 receiver, which is completely different. You can account for 2 receivers in the NFL. You can put your best corner on one. You can roll coverage to the other. The 3rd receiver becomes the variable, which is Washington now, who we signed from Pittsburgh. But if you're looking for Michael Gallup to give you number 2 production, hold up and wait a minute. Hold on a second. All right, because we don't know exactly how the body's going to respond. And if I'm a betting man, I'm going to tell you this man is not going to be ready for the beginning of the regular season. Now on to Randy Gregory. Mr. Jones states in his interview that, hey, it was no surprises. And Randy Gregory, he had the opportunity to do something to keep Randy Gregory. And we talked about it ad nauseum on Boss Cowboy Sports about the contract, about what happened, about the fumble, about the language that was inserted that was not the same as the language from the CBA, that it was language inserted to say that if you got not a suspension, any type of suspension, not just a suspension, but any type of fine, that we could take basically monies from you, and that Randy Gregory's agent is on record as stating those things. So guys, I'm gonna tell you this, and I'm gonna say this. I think this is another save face tactic. So let me read what Mr. Jones says. Okay, exactly. Let me read what he says. And this is very, 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 very interesting. All right, what Mr. Jones puts out here, and I will quote him and read this to you guys. He says this: "We had no surprises. Literally, I was on the phone with Randy and his agent. I said El Paso, that little West Texas town. I said El Paso, thank you, but no thank you. And he said, I'll go ahead and get on the plane. So we could have done something there, and they asked if we would do that, and I didn't do it. And I didn't do it of my own volition. It's a call that we'll just see. But we got at least 3 more top players with that, what we would have spent there. So I don't see the 3 top players that we got so far. And I don't believe the sentiment. I believe that it was a fumble, that Randy Gregory and his agent advised him correctly to take the money and not risk any of his money through any shoddy practices or language that was inserted at the last minute. That's not my opinion. I believe that is a save face tactic after thinking through what I should say to the public to save this. So right now, we're weaker defensively. All right. Now, hey, we did sign Jacksonville Jaguars defensive end, but I don't see the elite high-end athleticism in him. I think he will be a good player, though. I really do. I think he'll be a really good player, right? I think he'll help us a lot, right? So I'm really, really excited to see what he does. Fowler, I believe. But I'm saying, I don't see the 3 top players. Do you? I don't see where we've corrected this and where we've righted the wrong. I feel like this again comes down to the draft and what moves we can make. We just re-signed Carlos Watkins to another one-year deal. So we rented Carlos Watkins for another year. But what will we do in the draft? Right? And what can we do on the back end of free agency to shore up this roster? Those are the questions that inquiring minds want to know. So I want to know your thoughts about this. Drop your comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know how I did in the video. But that's my thoughts on the Jerry Jones interview and what he said and his quotations. Until next time, don't forget to follow, like, and share Boss Cowboy Sports, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can follow me, the OC100 on Twitter. We'll see you.